this story of a Dorset teenager who feared he'd never dance again after being diagnosed with leukemia. A couple of years ago, we spoke to Jude Feltham, who's now 14 years old, when he was about to head off to represent Team GB in a major tap dancing championship. Soon after that, he was diagnosed with leukemia. He's had to undergo chemotherapy. Actually, dancing whilst he had that leukemia seems to have caused 2 breaks in his back. It is a remarkable story. We'll speak to Jude's mum, Boo, live in just a moment. But first, our reporter has been to see Jude in person.
Start number 2, superstition.
I was just in complete shock because I thought I was perfectly fine because I just competed at a really high level. And I thought everything with my health couldn't be any better. But then when I found out, it was just heartbreaking.
In December 2019, shortly after becoming a world champion tap dancer, Jude started feeling unwell. Initially, the family thought it could be a virus, but then Jude started to complain of a sore ankle.
So we sat him on the sofa and we looked at his ankle and he had a sort of unusual red mark on it and some bruising.
He then had a blood test and was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. He was 12.
You could see in Jude's face the panic and the worry. And he just turned around to the doctor and just his only question that he wanted answered was, will I dance again?
Jude started chemotherapy straight away. At that time, he also found he was struggling to walk. After further scans, doctors found he had 2 fractures in his back.
Probably happened when he'd been doing the World Championships, because his bones would have been weak with the leukemia, but we didn't know. Then a second fracture appeared over the next sort of 6 weeks, which they believe was caused by the steroids.
Jude had to spend some time in a wheelchair and then on crutches, but he never gave up on dancing again.
I went onto crutches and then slowly I just became stronger. And then I heard my sister tap dancing and I was like, that's what I love and I want to be back doing that. So then I think I went and watched her and I was just sat on a chair and I was doing it with my feet.
And I've also heard you were telling your sister she was doing it wrong.
Yeah, I was like, that's not how you do this step, this is how you do this step. So I just wanted to show that I can still do it and prove to everyone that I can still do it.
And he certainly has. Despite still going through treatment, Jude's training at a tap studio in Swindon, studying at school, and he's also been selected for Team GB.
It is what drives him. It's his main focus and his main hobby and his love, and you can see it. You get in the car for a 2-hour drive to Swindon, which most people would probably dread, and he's bouncing, cannot wait to get there.
Jude also hopes people will support the Stand Up to Cancer campaign to help more people survive the disease. What would you want to say to young people out there?
I just want to let them know that when you are told bad news, that you shouldn't let that stop you, because if you persevere and try really hard, then anything is possible.
Sophia Seth reporting from Wimborne there. Jude's mum, Boo, is actually on the line with us now. Morning, Boo.
Good morning.
Nice to talk to you again. It's remarkable to me. We were talking, 2 or 3 years ago before Jude went off to those World Championships. And at the time, the biggest concern was the cost of his tap shoes and how much he might be bothering the neighbours with his tapping on his practice board. And little did you know then, that, a few weeks later, you're going to get that devastating news.
Yeah, it was, we've been on a real journey since we spoke to you last.
How is life at the moment then? Jude, as we heard there, dancing, training in Swindon, nice trips up there, but still getting treatment. How's he managing?
He's doing really, really well. The treatment, he's been lucky. The treatment has gone to plan at every point where it could have done. So really fortunate. But he's, from a tap point of view, he has, pushed himself to the limits because it's just what he wants to be doing all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, still long road ahead. 17 months of treatment left to go.
Crikey! And do you think that some of the focus on the tap kind of helps him get through that journey?
Oh, definitely. He's so determined to to do that, and actually even just simple things like be at school. Having had to miss school when he was too poorly to go, he now wants to be there. He wants to be there every day, and he gets so cross if he's not well enough to go, or if he's got appointments that he's got to be at and he's missing lessons. So his determination to tap and to get back to being as fit as he was is incredible.
How has he, and how have you managed through the last 18 months of pandemic stuff?
Bizarrely, the pandemic actually was quite beneficial for us, because at that point he had to miss 3-4 months of school. He'd had to give up being part of things. He was meant to be playing a main part in a school musical, and he was he was missing out on all the social and all the fun and missing his friends, and all of a sudden it all stopped, and so everything that he had been missing out on just wasn't happening anyway. So psychologically it was a real benefit to him, and in fact he jokes and says he feels like he's living in the Truman Show, because everything that he felt he was about to miss out on got cancelled, and it almost felt like it was sort of for his benefit.
We won't put the show on because Jude's not here, so we'll just pretend there's a pandemic and we'll hold it off for a couple of years until he's well again.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily true, but I get where he's coming from. And you as a parent, I mean, nobody wants to go through what you've been through. Watching him do this, I mean, it must be such a roller coaster, fear, anxiety, pride, all these emotions just colliding every single day.
Oh, for sure. We're obviously incredibly proud of him, and because he does so well, and he is living so normally, even though he's still on daily chemo and he's on steroids and he's taking all this medication, we quite often forget, and then you'll have a day where he's suddenly not well, or he's suddenly got no energy, or he's, the simple things like if he spikes a temperature, he's in hospital for 48 hours. And those things suddenly shock us, and then you have the reality and remember, of course, he's got cancer, but he sort of behaves like he hasn't.
Boo, his story's been picked up by the Stand Up to Cancer team, and it's gone national on their Twitter account. What should our listeners take away from Jude's story, your story this morning?
I think what we would want them to take away is, well, I know Jude would want people to take away that bad news, whether it be a health issue or anything, don't give up, don't instantly feel despair and think that your future is written off. Persevere, stay positive. You don't know what's going to happen, and we know that not everybody has a good outcome. We're not insensitive enough to not know that, but don't ever think the worst. Think the best until someone tells you otherwise, would sort of be our message. And with Stand Up to Cancer, they support so many different cancers, not just childhood leukemia. It would be sort of almost obvious for us to support a charity that talks about just what Jude's got. But as a family, if you'd have asked me in that interview 2 years ago what we knew about cancer, we'd had very little impact in our life, in our family. But in that time, we've had Jude's diagnosis with a childhood, leukemia. My mum was diagnosed with a brain tumour last year and passed away within 4 months. My uncle was diagnosed this week with various different types of cancer. My cousin's wife has just started chemotherapy for breast cancer. One of our best friends is just starting treatment for a stem cell transplant. It's so common now, and people need to understand that if they haven't been touched by it yet, they will be. So it's really, really, really important to help fund future research.
Really good to talk to you this morning. Say hello to Jude from me, and I appreciate you coming on to share your story and his story with us.
Oh, thank you so much.
We'll talk again when he's holding trophies at tap dancing championships.
Yeah, definitely.